What is going on, good people of the world? My name is Tanner with the Contractor Secrets Podcast. I got Pete Maurer here. Did I say that last name correctly?
Nah, it's more
More,
MOHR, like more or less.
more or less. Very good.
Yeah,
Pete,
yeah,
we connected 2 days ago for the first time ever. You didn't know I
Mhm.
existed. I didn't know you existed, and here we are.
That's it.
You have an interesting topic that I think is so valuable. It's one of my favorite topics. Is building a business to exit. You have experience doing this, and I think you are going to provide so much value to our hungry, motivated listeners. Let me ask you a question before we dive in. Do you think every business owner should start with the goal of selling their business?
Well, I don't know whether that's always the starting goal, but it should definitely be considered. And because, Tanner, one day you will exit your business.
One
Uh,
way or
it,
another, right?
it's a guarantee. So why not start planning and strategizing for that inevitability to happen as soon as you possibly can? So
Sure.
my belief is, yes, you should start out with the end in mind for sure. And it's not always the very first thing people think about, but it should be darn close. And you have to start planning and building your business with that in mind, because you know it's a beautiful thing to have a planned exit. And I've had a couple of those. I had a painting business, coding business that we exited after 15 years, still running strong 15 years later.
Wow.
I've had a cleaning franchise that we exited, and it went well. I've bought other businesses. One or two have not done as well, but we still exited them. And so these are different things along the way as we look at stuff. But the planned exit way of doing things is fantastic. But the reality of it is that probably about 40 or 50% of the business owner exit in an unplanned fashion. And if you're not ready for that, whether that's death or disability or partnership disagreements or divorce is another big one these days that causes the exit of business. So many different things that can cause an unplanned exit. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be ready for it, because there's tax implication, there's risk implication, there's people involved, there's all sorts of different things, and it could affect your family legacy. And that's one of the things why we get into business, because we want to continue family legacy and we want to provide for our families.
It's surprising to me how many painting businesses don't sell,
Hmm. You
and
know what?
they're not worth much. Would you
Well,
say that to be true?
no, I wouldn't say that to be true. They're not poised as being worth much because they haven't planned to make them worth much. And I think, there's a variety of different things. I used to be a business broker as well, helping people buy and sell businesses. And, when people don't plan some of this stuff, a lot of things, when you look at a service business, and I've owned a few of them, and, you know, a lot of it's got to do with your wealth of your clients, like how deep is your client base? Are they returning clients? A lot of this sort of stuff. When we look at the different capitals of a business, Tanner, there's many different capitals. It's not just your paintbrush and your truck. It's, there's so many different ways of looking at it. What's your human capital? Like, what's the power of your team? And can you show that and explain it to a new potential owner? What's your structural capital as far as your process? What kind of point of sale and customer relation management program are you using, right, Tanner? All these different things that allow you to show a potential new owner that you have this running on rails. Like, that's the structure, that's the process involved. When you have that all mapped out and laid out, you can show the process, you can show them the way that's going to happen, from the customer lead coming in to how you're going to sell that, to how it's going to be finished, and to your follow-up. And this is a proven system they can come in and redo. That's got value, it's got capital. It's not just the truck and the painter and the next, whatever paint you have sitting around the shop. It's a lot more than that. And the reality of it is proper exit planning is making sure that that's documented and processed and easily explainable to a potential new owner who's going to see the value in it.
How hard was it for you to sell your business? And tell me a little bit about the business. Now, was it concrete coatings? Did you do some painting?
No, we did refinishing work. So we did about 1,000 bathtubs a year. We sprayed kitchen
Wow.
cabinets. We sprayed tile work. We did counters, all sorts of different things. We also did acrylic wall systems and tub surrounds and things like that. A lot of bathrooms
Okay.
for a lot of apartment complexes, but we did homeowners too. And had a multi-truck operation on the road. I started it off myself, spraying with HVLP in hand, and away we go. And
So you were
built.
doing this before it got popularized.
Yeah, I started that in 1994.
Amazing.
So I
Wow,
was
man.
23 and got out of business school, Tanner, and I'm like, man, I don't have a lot of money in my back pocket, but I got $10,000, and at that time, it was a lot of money to me. And back then, I mean, the internet wasn't a thing really. We used to flip through Entrepreneur magazine looking for business ideas, and so
Wow.
I did that, and I found a franchise called Surface Doctor at the time, which is no longer around. And that's what they did. They refinished all sorts of different stuff: harvest gold bathtubs, old oak, dark oak kitchens to white, all
The
this kind of stuff,
gritty,
right?
the gritty aspect of
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you didn't just want to go painting, you wanted to go all the way.
Oh yeah, man. We
Yeah,
sprayed everything. So
neat. Love that. Love that.
and you know what? The business grew and built, and we did a lot. Like I said, a lot of property management business. So eventually, I kind of worked my way off a truck, half day by half day, into more of a sales role and a management role and an ownership role. And then we bought another business at the same time, which was a cleaning franchise. So I had both of them run at the same time, and we built it from 30 customers to 300 customers.
Wow.
And that was more in retail and restaurants. So I was kind of selling in retail and restaurants, selling in property management on the paint side, and then we sold both of those and exited both of those businesses down the road. And you were asking how hard it was to sell. Well, they weren't that hard. They were properly positioned to sell, and they made good money. And there was a cash flow, and it was easily explainable. And like even on the property management side, I had customers that I've been doing work for 14 years. It's like, you're buying a steady stream of revenue here, and it's repeat business. It's good business. They pay their bills. I can prove all of that. Even back then, we had process manuals and all sorts of stuff. And now, like with I'm currently own a couple of shoe stores as well, and we're much more rigid on our not rigid, but much more process oriented than I
Sure.
was back then, as far as the capabilities of all the different tools that we can use now to explain and show those, right? But it's all building that process, building that structural capital, along with your capital of your team, along with the capital. And you can prove your customers now, even client base, detail lists, email lists, all these different things show that you have built capital. So is
Sure.
a business easily sold? Not always easily sold, but is it sellable? Absolutely.
When it comes to selling a business, who do you sell it to? I mean, is it somebody that wants to just step into your shoes, an operator
Hmm.
that wants to make a six-figure income, and you're trying to sell it for maybe a seven-figure valuation? How do they justify paying, absorbent amount of money for?
Really depends on your business, right? Everybody, like, there's a lot of people out there that are running single operator and maybe one or two people on the team. I mean, that's a different person that's going to buy that business than somebody who's running a multi-truck operation that's got proven sort of returning customers and all sorts of other things. So it really starts on what your business looks like. And that's why I said earlier, it needs to be really clear on what your business looks like, and you need to be able to follow the pathways, because I'll tell you, whoever's buying it, whether it's somebody who's outside of the frame of work, like I never sold shoes before I bought the shoe stores. I bought a line of um, of capital. Like I bought a recurring line of revenue, and I learned how to sell shoes. And I ran that business that way. So you can sell a painting business, for example, outside of somebody who's never painted before, if you have the right process, right? And you can sell these businesses, and sometimes these businesses are even more valuable to somebody outside of the realm of what's going on. Strategic partnerships are really interesting, but you don't always get your most value there. Sometimes, if it's a really big business, a really big contracting business or whatever, you might get even more than your multiples, because they're trying to enter a new market or whatever the case is. But a lot of times, if you're just looking for somebody to sort of come and take it over so you can exit, it's a lot of times it's discounted in the smaller
Sure.
businesses. Mm-hmm.
I want to settle the debate. What's the multiplier based off of, in your
Mm.
experience, more common than not? Is it gross sales for the year? Is it what has been your experience with the multiplier?
Yeah. Um, well, first of all, there's many different ways to evaluate a business. So usually when we put sort of and I'm not, just to be clear, I'm not a business broker any longer, but I am a certified exit planner and helping people set their businesses up for sale and getting all this stuff ready. But from that perspective, you want to have it available to however they want to look at the numbers. And usually it's a combination of different sets of numbers. So one of them is going to be on your cash, right? Like how much are you bringing in? What's the profitability of the business, regardless of everything else? But then often the real value and the real sort of set of multipliers comes in on this back that we just talked about. And sometimes up to 80% of the value is based on these four things. The intrinsic values, right? Not just the how much is the truck worth and how much volume am I doing. It's got to do, again, with that human capital, the structural capital, your customer capital, and your social capital, your culture, both inside and outside of the business. So if you can detail that and you can prove that, that's when you're really going to add to the multiples. And, there's, depending on how much people know about their numbers who are listening, our listeners here today, Tanner, the reality of it is most people try to lower their taxes, lower their profit in their business when you look at their profit and loss statement so that they don't pay as much tax. Well, one of the things we need to do to show the revalue is to put all that back in. Right. We need to recast all of those numbers to show the new potential earner, the new potential owner of that business, to actually understand the true number. So there's a lot of people that think they know their actual number, but we need to find the true number.
Sure.
And the true number is going to dictate what we can sort of first cast that off at and look at the multiples. And then, there's three different gaps for each owner. And the first one is the wealth gap. Like, do you have enough already to live before you sell your business? And if you don't, what is that wealth gap, right? And we need to make sure that the business is going to be worth that. So the first thing is we need to get a valuation, because your idea of what it's worth and what it may be worth may be two different things, either good or bad.
Sure.
The next thing is the profit gap. So once we recast the earnings and look at your profit, are you in line with the rest of the industry? And if you're not, we need to fix that. And it takes time sometimes to get these right, because if your profit isn't in line and it's lower than what it is, you're not going to get, when you multiply that, that's not good. And then the valuation gap is, what's your valuation now? And if it were setting up to be one of the prime businesses in the whole structure of all, it doesn't matter what sort of segment you're in, whether you're in painting or carpet cleaning or retail or whatever, but looking at all of your competitors, are you one of the top 10? Because if you're one of the top 10, you're going to get a higher multiple. Sure. So everything we do in setting up the business and coaching the business owner to get exit ready is really around understanding these numbers so that we can try over whatever period of time that we have, whether it's 6 months, a year, or hopefully 2 or 3 years before they actually want to sell. Then we're working towards all of those different things to close those gaps so they maximize their value and get the highest multiple that they can upon exit. And understanding that that's the number that's going to work into their wealth gap and whether they're going to have to continue to work or not.
A big question that I think I had or would have in the shoes of someone who's like, man, exiting a business is so far away from me. I can't even get, I don't know who would want to take this mess from my hands, right? I mean, I think some people would feel trapped in a sense. It's like, I don't even know how to get started here. Yeah. I guess the first question is there's a lot of messy things that happen within a business, right?
Sure.
Relationship wise, especially a service-based business, it's sometimes very skill dependent. Like you said, you did refinishing. Maybe you probably had probably a pretty like an assassin level refinisher that holds a lot of weight in the business, or maybe the business owner's that guy. Do you find that one of the strategies that maybe you implement, I could be wrong, just curious, like, do you try to niche down with a potential candidate for exiting on one task as opposed to many in order to kind of systemize the offer to the marketplace? Like, do you find that that's a better approach than like taking all sorts of random things? Because in the painting business, you could do all sorts of things. You could do drywall, you could do, cabinets, you could do concrete, you could do all these different things that could be very heavily skill dependent. How does that factor into the approach to exit, if it does at all?
Well, it kind of depends on the history of the business, I think, Tanner. And, I always suggest trying to narrow the niche as much as you can in any business, doesn't matter, because I think it's just, you can get a lot more efficiency out of that. But that being said, when you overlay that onto the different people, it's been my experience that, as much as one of the things we sell when we're selling a business is we're selling our people, right? So to continue on that business, not everybody stays. And it's not like we can guarantee that they're going to stay, because maybe the people that we're turning over don't like the new culture of the new owner. So,
That
yeah,
can happen
and
easily.
it does happen all the
Yeah.
time, all the time,
They could have
you
built
know,
strong relationships with that owner, and I'm sure you see there might be some
yeah.
resentment that occurs in that transition. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. And so we look at all these different sort of pieces of the puzzle as far as of that strength. But, in preparation, I wouldn't necessarily say that that's the way to prepare your business for sale. But if that's the way to get the highest profit, and, understanding structure that's clear and easy and transferable, then I would then, in that case,
Sure.
because we want to, when I first start working with a customer, it's like, what do you want out of this? When do you want out? And sometimes it's a need to be out, because it's like, hey, I got cancer, and they're giving me a year, so I got to work through this. So it's like, okay, let's try to figure out the quick wins so we can present this right when you go to list it. And then the other one's like, you know what, I'm thinking 3 years from now. And that's like, okay, we got time, because you mentioned it early on, about 80% of the businesses that are listed for sale don't sell. I'll say it again because it's important.
Wow.
80% of the
That's a
businesses.
heartbreaker, dude.
Okay.
That's a heart.
Why? Mainly because they weren't set up with these things in
Right.
mind. It's just like, okay, I want to sell my business, and it's not a house. You don't just list it up. It's got 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and it's $1 million. It's
Oh,
like,
the
you
deep dive.
know,
There's a deep dive that takes.
there is. And people will pick it apart. And
Yeah.
your lovely baby looks like the ugly baby
Yeah.
every time.
It's like,
And
ooh.
and you can't hide this stuff, because people are going to find it out.
Yeah, and I think there's a certain mindset that I like to portray is like build your business with the idea that you're going to hand it to someone else in the future. And it's the same way you treat your house, right? I
For
mean,
sure.
most of us keep our house up because it's not, most of us don't believe we're going to stay in the house that we're currently in for the rest of our lives. We all know
Yeah.
that. Like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
a possibility we're going to leave, and this thing has some value. We're going to want to sell it, so we should probably paint it, right? Or we should probably keep it clean and tidy. So it's
Mhm.
the same thing with business. And I think just because like you have your own secrets about the way you're doing things, you need to have that, self-discipline, right? And I think one of the components is, and I'd like for you to hit on this, is paying yourself as a business owner. Isn't it easy to just do
Mm.
those transfers, from the business account to the personal checking? Like, how valuable is it for the business owner to actually set aside a salary to himself or herself in the course of doing business, even if it seems silly at the time? Is that a value? I mean, the habit of doing that or the automation behind that?
It's part of your structure. When we talk about, so I've got I have all sorts of different processes that I like to coach with. And one of them is called the 5 Ps. And the 5 Ps really is: understand your promise. That's your promise to your customer, right?
Sure.
Align your product, your process, and your people to that, so that you can have the right amount of profit. And there's all sorts of stuff in behind that. But when we look at that, it's a similar sort of thing. The amount of profit that you have, even when we go to look at exiting a business, and it doesn't really matter how you take your profits.
Sure.
I'm in Canada, and in Canada here, I don't take a salaried, but I take dividends. But
Sure.
regardless, I take regular draws on dividends. It really doesn't matter how you draw out of your business. But from that perspective, you should always be drawing out of your business. And that's, again, if you show that your process is, I draw out of my business every week, or I draw out of my business every 2 weeks, the new potential owner is going to look at that and saying, okay, well, that's one of the things I can expect to do then. If they're drawing $1,000 a week, or they're drawing $10,000 a week, it doesn't matter. But if they're drawing consistently this amount of money, now I feel confident and I feel capable that I'm going to draw $1,000, and I'm going to be able to build on that.
Right. Beautiful. And it's that consistency of income is what's important, right? It's, I think everything that we're talking about, and what I think, your core offer is you're helping create predictability for a future buyer.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah, for
that's the
sure.
that's the biggest component of anything of value, is to predict the predictability of whether it's going to be a great experience or it's going to return some sort of investment. I love this topic, man. I think it's a very important topic. And it's also something that could give someone hope, like you said. I mean, I think you alluded heavily to those circumstances of being forced out of your business
Oh
and
boy.
not having a plan. Um, Somebody's deep into the business operations. They don't know where to start. I know you broke down some of your steps. What's what's week one look like? I mean, like I got 8 employees. We do all sorts of work. My
Yeah.
books are all over the place. Our profits all over the place. Like, do you even work with people like that, or are you
Yeah,
like, I
sure.
don't know if I can handle that? Like,
No, I
tell me
do.
the
I
process.
do. And you know what? The first, and it really depends on the size of the business, Tanner. It depends on the involvement. I really don't work with anybody where the owner isn't directly involved. Like if the owner's like, oh well, I'm going to pass this off to somebody, and that's not really my kind of client. I want to work with the owner, make sure that the owner's involved, so that they truly understand everything that's
Sure.
going on here. And you know, if there's a team involved underneath that, it's like no problem. But ultimately, my conversations and my meetings are always with the owner, and so we're working through these different things because the idea here is that the owner needs to be able to align and assign authority to other people to get stuff done. And if they can do that, here's the deal. I work about, give or take, a day a week in my retail stores. I have 2 retail stores, and I spend almost all my time coaching other people like this and having great conversations with you on podcasts and speaking on stages at conferences and things like that. And the idea here is that I'm running this kind of business in the way, and I'm trying to teach other people how to do that too. And I did that with my service businesses too. I mean, I couldn't have had 2 businesses on the run and have multiple trucks and people cleaning and spraying and all this kind of stuff every day had I not set this business up to run on its own. And, you know, I'll give you a quick story. Both of my parents passed away in the last year and a half, both within a year of each other. And they live 6 hours away. And I spent the better part of that year traveling back and forth to help them out in their final days. And I could not have done that if I didn't have my business running on rails,
Wow.
if I didn't have the structure that we talked about, if I didn't have the people that I talked about, if I didn't have the proven recurring revenue that I talked about without me being
Sure.
involved.
Life happens.
Right. And that's what I want to help others to, because I'll tell you what, whether you want your own freedom back, whether you want to take it from 80 hours down to 20 hours or 30 hours, whatever the case is, it doesn't really matter because those things are uniquely your freedoms. But what I'm trying to do with my clients, which also helps the valuation of their business, is to have that business running on rails without them.
Yeah.
And when you can do that, your business has much more value and you are exit ready.
I'd rather be exit ready. I'm gonna try to find this analogy that I heard. It was really good. I'm gonna if I botch it, Pete, don't judge me for it. But
It's all
they
right,
say
man.
it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. All right. I
There
don't
you
know if
go.
you've heard that one, right?
I haven't.
Have it? Okay. So in other words, when war happens, it's better to be a warrior in your garden, right?
Yeah.
Than it is to be a gardener stuck in a war. So
Yeah.
for me, I look at that like, and again, if you want to look up that analogy, go ahead. It's a
Well,
great
yeah,
one. Whoever
yeah.
said
It's
it
the
the
first time
first
I heard
time,
it.
I mean, it was
Yeah.
inspiring when I heard it. But I'll say this, man, prepare for that. I love that
Mm.
story and my condolences to your family, but how beautiful it is that you set that up and maybe even, got to experience once again the value of freedom that business can provide. And I think there's so many people stuck behind that hump. Over that hump, it's almost like, man, like this is a different experience.
Mm.
Owning a business and operating something that runs itself, um, and creates impact.
It doesn't mean we don't need to be involved in our businesses, Tanner. I mean, I'm still involved, and it's not like I completely disassociate with anything. Your team still needs to know you're there, and still
Yeah,
needs to know that you're interested, and
yeah.
still,
Sure, for
all.
sure. I'm
So it's
with
not
you.
like it can completely just like head out to Hawaii for the year, but at the same time, it's like if you're. It's one thing to be busy and having busy seasons, and
Sure.
as business owners, we're all out in our busy seasons. That's normal. But if you're busy every day and every day is a busy season and every day you're putting out the fires and every day is just another day that's like crazy, that's a problem.
It is.
And it's not going to be easy to sell that business because everybody else is going to look at it's going to see the same thing and go, oh my God, when this guy leaves or this lady leaves, I don't know what's going to happen.
Sure. There's an experience that I have as well, where I've been on both sides of the fence, and even as an employee, my mother
Yeah.
passed away, and I was
Mm.
working at a car dealership.
Yep.
And the pressure to get back to work was very high, even during that very, very tough time in my family.
I get
And
it.
the pressure of like losing my job or not being able to pay my bills. Like maybe they did give me a couple days, but I wasn't making any money. So it's like I have to hurry up and get back. And I'm still like wounded, man. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
and that could feel the same way, even if you own a business, it could actually be worse because as an employee, I can kind of withdraw a little bit, right? I can just, I can kind of do my own thing, fade off into the side and walk around the building a few times. But as a business owner, you have that phone ringing. You have
Yep.
people that need energy extracted from you.
Hmm.
You have all those things that are happening. There's no shut off valve as a business owner without systems at all. Um, Powerful stuff, man. Beautiful. I want to talk about two things. One, I got to get a book recommendation from you. You stand on the books behind you. What's a book recommendation for individuals that are starting to think about this journey? I didn't think it'd take you long to find one. You knows exactly where it's going to be. What's that one there?
Look at how many tabs for those of you
I love that, man.
this one is tabbed up. It's called Walking to Destiny by Christopher Snyder, and he's the founder of the Exit Planning Institute, and that's where I have my certification as a certified exit planner. So much stuff in this book, Walking to
Wow.
Destiny by Christopher Snyder. This is the new release. So he wrote one maybe 8-10 years ago,
Okay.
but this new one is the one with the blue cover. So a little more up to date, and just a great book that kind of outlines exit planning strategy, outlines the ideas, and gets you thinking about how to set your business up for the proper exit. And whether that exit happens as a planned exit or
Yeah.
whether it happens as an unplanned exit, at least you're ready for exiting.
And there's a reward here, even if you set up the business for an exit and you don't plan on selling it.
Right.
By the way, like I think the term exit has a connotation. I think some
Yeah.
people need the strategies first,
Yeah.
and that reward is exactly one of the things that Pete was speaking about of just freedom, but also like the feeling of like you created something that runs without you. And I think I would
Mm.
love, that's a passion of mine too, to share that. And I think you'll get that as well. So Pete, someone's listening to this, they like you, man. They're like, man, this guy's aligns with what I'm trying to do. He's speaking to my heart. What is the best way for someone to get in touch with you, to maybe discuss this a little bit more?
Best way is just to head on over to my website. My company is called Simplifying Entrepreneurship. I know that's a long one, but
Well, it's in the
simplifyingentrepreneur.com.
back screen there. We could see it
Yeah,
in
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
right there.
And up right in the top corner there, there's
I'll
a
drop the
button that
link
says,
in the bio.
yeah, it says speak to Pete, and you'll connect with me, and we'll hop on a call and have a little chat about your business and see if we're a right fit.
Sure. Beautiful. Pete, man, this has been a pleasure. You reached out to me, and I think it was for good reason. Hope we can connect soon. And thank you again, man. This was awesome.
It's awesome. It's been a pleasure, Tanner.
Yeah,
Make it
man.
a great
It
day.
was awesome. You too, man.